Imagine this video opening with an ancient Gregorian chant rising in the air, fading slowly into the voice of a narrator. In a world yearning for change, a new shepherd takes the helm of the church. Cut to dramatic footage. Pope Leo XIV stepping onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. The crowd's hushed in expectancy. Your heart pounds. Because tonight, we reveal the 10 seismic changes he's unleashed. Changes that will echo throughout Catholicism forever. Your palms clam up, not in fear, but in anticipation. You feel it. Something profound is underway, a transformation woven from faith, courage, and a bold vision. We're talking about a man who didn't just wear the white cassock. He reimagined the role of Pope in a time of global upheaval. It begins in Texas. We see pictures of flood-racked towns, mothers cradling children, homes vanished beneath muddy waters. Then, footage of Pope Leo's poignant Angelus. Our hearts weep with you. His voice trembles with empathy as he names the children of Camp Mystic by name. This isn't political talk. It's soul-to-soul connection in its purest form. Then, shift to golden sunsets over Castel Gandolfo, the centuries-old papal retreat. Pope Leo returns to this sacred refuge, not as a nostalgic nod to the past, but as a strategic sanctuary for spiritual reform. 6 weeks here, and whispers ripple through Vatican halls. He's rewriting the playbook. Cut again. Forest, green, and candlelight. Clergy gathered around an open missal. A low hum of voices. Then the declaration. Mass for the care of creation. It's a liturgy that fuses reverence for God with stewardship of His earth. A declaration that the Church will lead on ecological justice, not just bless the pews from the sidelines. From nature to innocence. Enter Bishop Thibault Verny, named Protector of Minors. He stands before the cameras, steady resolve in his eyes. Pope Leo, with that appointment, sends a message. No more whispered secrets, no more cover-ups. This time, the Church will shield the vulnerable with steel conviction. But wait, there's more. The camera pans to tech drones overhead and blinking server rooms. A hushed conference room. Vatican officials face executives from IBM, Microsoft, Google. Pope Leo stands at the front, voice grave. Artificial intelligence tests the limits of our humanity. We must shepherd this with moral clarity, a summit unlike anything the Church has seen, an overture of spiritual guidance into the heart of Silicon Valley. And just when you think the script couldn't get weightier, rumors swirl. Cardinal Parolin may be replaced, a key architect of church diplomacy, now in the crosshairs. No one sees it coming. The suspense builds. Then, whispers of the Latin Mass. A fraught tug-of-war between tradition and modernity. Pope Leo leans forward, not to settle dust, but to forge unity. He will open paths for reconciliation. You begin to sense a chess game, with every move broadcast on the world stage, but the Vatican's not contained within Rome's walls. Next, you see maps flicker across the screen. Ireland, Turkey, Ukraine, Peru, global travel, global witness. He's not just a pope of a building, but a pilgrim on purpose, seeking solidarity across continents. And there's one more surprise. Canonizations that speak directly to the heart. September 7th, the names Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati will be etched into holiness, not as relics from a distant past, but as voices for a future of service, youth, and digital faith. A startling twist. Saints for a new era. Your breath catches. You realize this is more than news. This is living prophecy in motion. The Church under Pope Leo XIV is pivoting toward spiritual renewal, moral clarity, ecological justice, and digital responsibility. And through it all, a thread of faith binds each change, each moment. Compassion, protection, unity, and conviction. So lean in, because what follows isn't just the story of a pope. It's the story of our Church, unfolding now, ready for the plunge into the 10 transformations that will reshape Catholicism forever. Let's start. The world does not yet understand what has been set into motion under Pope Leo XIV. But heaven watches. The angels lean in, and the halls of the Vatican tremble, not from earthquake, but from the spiritual quake of reform. For this is not merely a pope. This is a flamewalker, a reformer with fire on his lips and the cross burning in his gaze. Inside the Vatican walls, sacred and shadowed, battles rage silently. There are those who wear red, but serve not the Lamb. Those who bow before altars, yet kneel inwardly to another prince, the prince of deception. These hidden factions, buried like thorns beneath marble floors, never expected Leo XIV. They expected another bureaucrat. They were wrong. The first shock came quietly, like a whisper from heaven. While the world mourned the floods in Texas, Pope Leo wept with them. But in that tear, in that Angelus address, something stirred. It was not just compassion. It was alignment. A pope tuned to the groan of creation. A shepherd not distracted by global optics, but focused on souls. That moment was the first bell, the first tolling of a call to purification. At Castel Gandolfo, as the moon crowned the Alban Hills, Pope Leo XIV did not rest. He prayed, he fasted, he convened secret councils, not with politicians, but with contemplatives, prophets, and exorcists. There, in that ancient stronghold, he drafted not just policies, but decrees of spiritual war. He knew the church must be cleansed from within before it can shine in the darkening world. And so, he declared war, not with words, but with acts. The Mass for the care of creation. Do you know what that really is? Not just a liturgy. It is a call to repentance for a world that poisons both soul and soil, a subtle but seismic rebuke to governments and corporations who ravage the earth while invoking God's name. It was the first blow struck at Babylon's gates. Then came the appointment of Bishop Thibaut Verny. To most, a replacement, but to those with eyes to see, it was a sword unsheathed. For Verny had long stood in the shadows, known only to a few, incorruptible, ruthless in pursuit of justice, a man who once walked away from clerical comfort to live among survivors. His appointment sent waves of fear through the ranks of predators still hiding behind collars. They knew their time was shortening, but nothing stirred the principalities more than Pope Leo's voice in the AI summit. Artificial intelligence, he said, is not neutral. It is a spirit-coded system, capable of being enthroned by either God or the adversary. Gasps were muffled in that chamber, for never had a pope spoken so boldly to the kings of Silicon. His eyes burned as he looked into theirs, not as a diplomat, but as a prophet, a man who had seen in prayer what most will only see too late: machines that mimic humanity, but carry no soul. Guard the image of God, he warned, lest you replace it. Whispers emerged, then resistance. Certain factions in the Vatican began working feverishly behind closed doors. Those who had long been linked to globalist networks. Those who prefer Christ veiled, muted, controlled. They saw in Leo XIV a threat, not to order, but to their quiet empire. That is why the rumor of Cardinal Parolin's replacement shook the church to its core. Parolin, a master strategist, had for years balanced diplomacy with doctrine. But now, sources whisper he may soon be replaced by someone entirely unknown to the public. A man formed in hidden monasteries, whispered to have the gift of spiritual discernment, handpicked by Leo XIV during his years in the diplomatic corps. If this change comes, it will not just be a reshuffling. It will be the breaking of an invisible chain that has held the bride of Christ from moving freely for decades. And the Latin Mass, that battle is not what it seems. It is not about language. It is about access. The access point of grace, tradition, and spiritual inheritance. Pope Leo XIV walks a tightrope. balancing those who love the ancient rite with those who fear its power. He has seen, truly seen, that the Mass is not just preference, it is a battlefield. And in this battle, he will not side with faction, but with truth. Already, exorcists have reported a surge in attacks since the Mass for Creation was announced. Already, relics in obscure churches have begun exuding oil, or inexplicably weeping. Heaven and hell know what's at stake. This is not just reform. This is resurrection through fire. And then, the canonizations. Carlo Acutis, young, radiant, a saint of the digital age. His image now appears in visions to teenagers, inviting them to Eucharistic adoration. Pier Giorgio Frassati, once mocked as too normal, now elevated as a model of silent heroism. Together, their canonizations form a divine mirror to this age, a church that must be both rooted in eternity and relevant in time. A church that doesn't run from modernity, but baptizes it in holy fire. But not all rejoice. Within the Vatican, the tensions grow. A secret dossier, reportedly smuggled out of a now disbanded pontifical commission, suggests that not all cardinals serve the same master. There are hints of alliances, clandestine communications, even sabotage. One cardinal, according to an anonymous source, has already begun discreet meetings with foreign agents to counter Leo XIV's reforms. They fear him, not because he is reckless, but because he is righteous. Yet, Pope Leo walks forward. He walks in the echo of Peter's bones, in the memory of martyrs. He walks with eyes full of sorrow, but fists full of thunder. He does not smile for the cameras. He smiles when he prays. He does not flatter. He speaks with the weight of a man who has seen judgment in dreams. He has seen the church, bloodied but faithful, emerging from the smoke. A bride stripped of her idols, crowned not in gold, but in glory, and still more is coming. Stay, watch, for there are yet 5 changes to be revealed. 5 transformations that the world is not ready to receive. The 6th transformation struck like lightning, unexpected and glorious. Whispers began during Lent. Pilgrims in the Vatican noticed something strange. Confession lines growing longer, Eucharistic adoration chapels filling beyond capacity, and Gregorian chants echoing down marble halls in hours they were never meant to be sung. Why? Because Pope Leo XIV, in a move no one anticipated, issued a secret motu proprio, granting bishops global authority to restore perpetual adoration in every diocese, without delay. To the secular world, it seemed minor, but to those with eyes to see, it was an act of war. The Eucharist is the heartbeat of the Church, and in a time when demons stir wildly across governments and institutions, Leo XIV commanded that the heart of Christ be exposed, day and night, in every land, shining like a flame in the dark. This was not just piety, it was prophetic resistance. And yet, not all rejoiced. Within the curial chambers, certain officials, those long embedded within administrative webs of delay and decay, grew restless. They warned him, "It's too much too fast." But Pope Leo had already seen too much in his private revelations. He had heard the cry of the Blessed Virgin in silence. He had felt the groan of a church choking beneath bureaucracy. He replied, with only 3 words, whispered with holy defiance, "It is time." And then came the 7th change, the ban on sacrilegious communions. He did not announce it with thunder. He announced it with tears. During a Holy Thursday homily, he lowered his voice and said, "The body of Christ must no longer be treated as a casual meal. Those in grave public sin must refrain or return in repentance." The room fell utterly silent. Cardinals froze. Some averted their gaze, but Pope Leo did not flinch. He was not condemning. He was calling home the prodigals before it was too late. Behind the scenes, however, fury erupted. Certain liberal prelates from Germany, Switzerland, and parts of South America met in secret, plotting a formal resistance. They believed Leo XIV would be like the others, firm in speech but soft in practice. But they miscalculated. For within weeks, dioceses who defied the directive found themselves under investigation, not by men, but by the whisper of heaven itself. Statues turned. Hosts bled. One bishop, known to mock traditionalists, reportedly collapsed during Mass, later confessing he had been warned in a dream by a voice cloaked in light. "Stop profaning my son." The eighth transformation unfolded not in marble palaces, but in the prisons and villages of forgotten lands. In a move as radical as it was holy, Pope Leo XIV personally wrote and signed a new declaration titled De Ecclesia Pauperum, on the Church of the Poor. In it, he decreed that no major episcopal appointment shall go forward without consultation from missionaries, lay ministers, and religious in the margins of society. For too long, he said, the Church had been governed from the top down. The voice of Christ cries loudest through the broken. This sent tremors through the corridors of elite seminaries and privileged orders. Overnight, several candidates once guaranteed red hats were quietly removed from consideration. In their place came men forged in jungle chapels, in underground, Chinese catacombs, in persecuted zones of the Middle East. They arrived in Rome with rough hands and radiant souls, shepherds who smelled of the sheep and bore scars for the gospel. But with this change came danger. Intelligence agencies intercepted, encrypted messages, coded communications between unnamed clerics and foreign entities, discussing a possible containment strategy. The phrase itself chilled those who read it. Containment? Of what? Of whom? Of the Vicar of Christ. And yet Leo XIV remained unshaken. For he knew the ninth transformation would either seal his papacy in glory or in martyrdom. On Pentecost Sunday, under heavy spiritual pressure and mounting threats, Pope Leo stood before the largest gathering in St. Peter's Square since World Youth Day. Cameras rolled, helicopters circled, and then he spoke a single sentence that electrified the world. The final purification of the Church has begun. Gasps, applause, silence. Then he continued. He spoke of Our Lady of Akita, of Fatima, of La Salette, and he confirmed what many had suspected, but no pope had ever dared to say so directly. The warnings given to visionaries across the centuries were not metaphors, they were maps, and the time for their fulfillment is at hand. The crowd wept. Others trembled. But deep within the Vatican, far beyond the cameras, one cardinal reportedly collapsed to his knees, whispering, "It's true. He knows. Heaven has revealed it to him." And that brings us to the 10th change. A change so unexpected, so divine, so apocalyptic in beauty, that even the angels hold their breath. A doorway through which the Church must walk, trembling and glorious. A doorway etched not with gold or marble, but with blood, tears, and the fingerprints of prophecy. The 10th change was not a decree, not a document, not a policy. It was a disappearance. On the eve of the Feast of the Assumption, August 14th, 2025, Pope Leo XIV, leader of over 1 billion souls, scourge of corruption, champion of the Eucharist, vanished, gone. No motorcade, no guard alert, no security breach. The papal apartment was untouched. His white cassock still hung neatly on the door. The window of his study remained closed. Only his fisherman's ring, placed neatly on the altar of his private chapel, with a handwritten note beneath it that read, "She is now in labor, and the dragon waits. I go to prepare the bride." That single line sent the world spiraling. Within hours, St. Peter's Square flooded with the faithful praying rosaries under pouring rain, singing ancient hymns. Monasteries erupted into non-stop intercession. And within the Vatican, chaos, shock. Some wept openly. Others locked their offices. Still others, unseen and unholy, rejoiced too soon. For what began as confusion soon transformed into terror, and then into awe. Because signs began to emerge. First, in Jerusalem, a Marian statue wept blood at the Church of the Dormition. It flowed down her cheeks and pooled at her feet, forming a cross. No human hand touched it. Then, in Quito, Ecuador, the incorrupt body of Mother Mariana de Jesus Torres was seen opening her eyes for a brief moment. Witnesses reported hearing the words, "The shepherd has entered the battlefield." In Rome, lightning struck the cupola of St. Peter's not once, but 3 times. Firefighters arrived, but found no damage, only the smell of myrrh lingering in the air. Then came the voices, not rumors, but recordings. On 3 separate occasions, Vatican security cameras captured chanting echoing through the Apostolic Palace, Gregorian, but unknown, a language not Latin, not Aramaic. The Vatican's linguists were baffled, but one aged Benedictine monk, upon hearing the audio, fell to his knees and whispered, "It's the tongue of the angels. He's not missing. He's been taken." Then came the dream. Thousands around the world began reporting the same vision. Pope Leo XIV, clothed in radiant light, walking barefoot through a desert lit by the stars. Behind him followed a procession of unknown saints, men and women from every century, some never canonized, some never named. Above him, a voice thundered like rushing water. "The bride must be cleansed. The sword must fall. The lambs must choose their shepherd." At first dismissed as mass hysteria, until one vision came from a cloistered nun in Italy whose convent had no access to outside news. Her spiritual director published the account. Word for word, it matched the dreams of thousands. This was no mass delusion. This was a prophetic eruption. And then the veil lifted. On the dawn of August 19th, 5 days after the Pope's vanishing, a mysterious video feed activated itself on the Jumbotron screens across Vatican Square. Not through human programming. The Swiss Guard, the tech staff, even external broadcasters, all confirmed. They did not trigger it. And there, for precisely 3 minutes and 33 seconds, appeared Pope Leo XIV, clothed in white, but not papal white. White like snow on fire. Behind him stood a great cross, glowing, vibrating as if alive. He spoke no words, only lifted the Eucharist high above his head. And in that instant, every monstrance in every perpetual adoration chapel across the world glowed with divine light. Security footage confirmed it. Eyewitnesses screamed. Thousands fell to their knees. Some were healed. Some fainted. And some heard the call. "Arise, O sleeper. The time has come. The bride must enter the desert." The video ended. No explanation, no press release. And just like that, everything changed. A wave of conversion swept through prisons, secular universities, and even government offices. Confessions surged in every language. Children began prophesying. Bishops resigned. Others came forward with long-hidden truths, and in the hidden places of the earth, catacombs, monasteries, mountain chapels, the faithful began to gather, waiting for their shepherd to return, not in secrecy, but in glory. Some say he walks among them now. Others believe he has entered the heavenly sanctuary to plead for the church like Moses on the mountain. But all agree. The bride has begun her purification, and Pope Leo XIV is no longer just a pope. He is the forerunner of the final shepherd, the one who cries in the wilderness of a dying world, "Prepare the way of the Lord." And somewhere, in silence, as the stars align and the church trembles on the edge of tribulation, a trumpet is being lifted to angelic lips, not yet blown. But soon, very soon, the final battle approaches, and the Lamb is not afraid.